That reminds me, like when I was in my high school broadcasting class.
Yeah.
Before I was even in the high school broadcasting class, it was like my sophomore year, and the broadcasting teacher approached me in the hall because she knew, along with a bunch of other like staff and teachers and students at the school, knew that I did like YouTube videos.
Right.
And she was like, I'd really like you to do the Man on the Street segment. Like I've always wanted to do a Man on the Street segment on the news, and I would really like for you to do it. Can you be appropriate? And I was just like, yeah, I can do it. She's like, okay, we'll start the broadcasting class next semester and we'll do it. So I signed up for it the following semester, and she was like a pregnant teacher. So like within 3 months, or 2 or 3 months, she was out, and then it was replaced by a permanent substitute,
right?
Mr. Trubia, the man. And he was just like, he was a cool, like spry guy, but like he just was laid back and kind of didn't give a fuck. So like after the first half of the 15 episodes I did that first semester, now the person who has to like, I pass it through the gatekeeper of it,
right?
Now doesn't give a shit. So I got away with like some pretty wild, like nothing like inappropriate on like a gross or like swearing kind of level.
But you knew what you were doing.
Some disrespectful trolling type stuff. Yeah. And so anyway, but like people mostly liked Man on the Street. Even the teachers were fairly supportive of it. They're like, Fridays when it comes on, and like this is the only day we watch the Cougar View, and you know, people were fairly supportive of it. And as far as things that I was making, to me, it was like the easiest and dumbest, I didn't give a shit about it thing.
Right.
But it was cool to be able to be on the school news and like produce it myself. But there was one semester I did like another season of it the following year, and then the second semester, or sorry, the back 2 semesters of my junior year, I asked, like, can I do something different? I really love Tim and Eric. Can I make my own? Me and my friend Jake want to make our own version of Tim and Eric's awesome show. It'll be Jake and Cameron's awesome show.
That's awesome.
And so we want to use the green screen in the broadcasting studio. And these episodes, I mean, it was just nonsense comedy. and the emails that would come in for that every week, it was like, this is completely a waste of time. This is
who's writing these emails? Who's
teachers?
writing
Teachers. There were teachers that hated my gut. There were teachers that loved me and loved what I did. There were teachers that I was the bane of their existence. Like they're like, this student shouldn't be here.
They were ready to expel you from the school. It's like he shouldn't be on TV. No, in this building.
Yeah, put him on permanent ISS. But yeah, I mean, look,
anytime Cameron shows up, just lead him to the room, leave him there.
Yes, and there was, I mean, we only got to air probably like half of the 14 episodes that we made. Like we got away with airing the first like handful, and by the third episode, the broadcasting teacher at the time, Ms. Lloyd, was like, "You got to take this to Mr. McDuffie," like the assistant principal or the vice principal, and I remember we had to sit in this boardroom with Mr. McDuffie, me, my friend Kenny, and I believe maybe Jake or Priscilla with me. And, you know, he's an official tall man. And we're sitting in like the staff boardroom with him. And I opened up his laptop and showed him. And then just the very beginning of it is like, in the arms of an angel, and like puppies in black and white, like it is that Sarah McLachlan commercial, and
right.
A green screen fire explosion of my friend Kenny with a lightsaber, and then this like hard rock song, just Kenny Gingerbread with a lightsaber, he's gonna kill you.
I can't even. And this would have been like what, 2009?
2012.
2012?
Yeah.
Like this is no faculty is ready for anything as irreverent as no one's ready for students to do something as stupid and out there as that.
Yeah. And it was this whole thing about like trying to hand this kid like a pen and saying it was a cigarette and trying to get him to smoke it. And then like me and Jake popped up on the screen like superimposed over it, like, this is a PSA, no pregnancies, no more teen pregnancies in school. I mean, he really was like...
Oh, you were asking to get canceled. You were asking.
Yeah. There was just this one little boogie break at the end of it with a song about I like to wear hats in my room that Mr. McDuffie was like, that part can go. That part can stay. Everything else does not seem to contribute.
It violates the school's dress code, but I'll allow it for the name of comedy.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, man.
That is so. Is that your origin story? Like, what's the closest to an origin story for like Camboy, Cameron, like all of it? Like, is that?
Well, it definitely goes back further than that. I know that when I was right at the end of 5th grade, and that in between time between graduating 5th grade and going to middle school, it was my last bit of time, like last month or so, living in Greensboro. That's where I went to elementary school and preschool.
Right.
Born in Wilmington, but then moved back with my mom and family, or her parents.
Yeah.
In Greensboro. And anyway, so at the end of 5th grade, I had this friend named Sapo, and he had a camera, and we were just talking about like making videos. And I can't remember what came first or not, but I also was doing this game with my friends called Muchachas Hunter. And it was like hide and seek, but I was the muchacha. The Muchachas Hunter would have this big plastic candy cane.
Yeah.
And the muchachas would be the hider, and you'd behave like an animal. And this is so fucking strange.
That's where, because I knew MH Productions, but that's where that came from.
Yes.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And then in high school, I had a crush on my English teacher, Miss Harrington, so I kept saying MH Productions stood for Miss Harrington Productions. Anyway, yeah. So that is the origins of Muchachas Hunter are definitely stranger and weirder. And then it just turned into this thing where it's like I meld the two ideas. Like, okay, let's start recording this game, and then it became my own like direct to DVD series. And then maybe like a year or two after that, I learned how to get things on the internet. I made like South Park-esque cartoons in middle school. I got in big trouble for those in middle school. Man, when they discovered those. But
that is wild, man.
And so when I went to high school, because of that experience in middle school, I was like protective. I was like, I don't want people finding out. Like, I don't want the school finding out that I make videos, because I don't want that to happen again.
Right.
But they ended up finding out, and it was a completely polar opposite reaction. They were very supportive. They're like, it's very cool.
Which is what it should be like.
Yeah. They're like, it's very cool that a kid is doing something productive and creative.
Yeah.
Who cares if it's gross? Just don't, do it at school if you're saying swear words and making...
Right. This is your place where you're a creative person. We're going to help you grow in your creativity. What's not school appropriate has to be outside of school, which it is. Like, that should be. I like that you had the thing of like having it encouraged in high school.
Yeah, I mean, and I almost want to say that like the origin story of like to get to the essence of like why I do what I do from like the earliest memory, it probably is nested in this whole like middle school thing. Like I really liked Family Guy when I was in elementary school, and then got into South Park early into middle school, and then I think South Park really influenced that cartoon. And so I was making these kind of offensive, gross cartoons. And like the first episode, like just to give an example, it was like me and my friend Kenny and Jay, we like made cartoon versions of ourselves and voiced them. Yeah. And then we had
even had a Kenny.
Yes. Yeah. And then we had my grandpa be the Six Flags guy, and he like jumped around and so then Eye of the Tiger comes on, and he stretches his neck out and then unzips his pants and starts licking his own vagina. Again, I made this in like 6th or 7th grade. And so this is what the teachers discovered. And they reported it to the principal. And so the principal called me in, Mr. Culp, and he sat me down in the office. He was like really trying to like scare me or whatever. He was like, so your video is getting a lot of hits online. I was just like, I had like 100. It's
the faculty of the school sharing it to each other on the email.
Exactly. I was like, you guys did that. And so anyway, I was like, okay. He's like, this is really inappropriate. And I'm like, okay. He's like, what do you think your mother would have to say about it? I was like, I don't know. You can try to call her. And so he called her right there on the spot. And I knew she already knew about me making it. And so he's like, we discovered your son's videos online, and well, I'm sure I don't know if you're aware, but they're very inappropriate, and they're getting a lot of views, and blah 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 blah. And then just in the middle of him explaining it, my mom goes, I'm sorry, what does this have to do with school? And he's like, thank you. Well, nothing, I suppose, but do you think you could get him to take these down? And then she was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he goes, okay. And then he gets on the phone, and then he just kind of sits there in silence with me for a moment. He's like,
what if this was on speaker? He did this on speaker in front of you?
Pretty much. Yeah. I was like, he's like, all right, you're free to go. And then it was just these bitter teachers that like knew about it. Like Soulja Boy was a character on the show. I had Soulja Boy and I did his voice, and his voice was nothing like Soulja Boy. I was like, what up, G? My name is Soulja Boy. Like,
Nailed it.
so I did that voice in class like one time months later, and the teacher, my science teacher, freaked out. She was like, no, you can't do that here. And I'm like, okay. So that's what it was like.
First, it starts with him doing the voice, and the next thing you know, he's stretching his neck out in class.
Yes. There's only 2 staff members at the middle school that told me that they supported me, like, and they were secretive about it. It was the art teacher, Miss Ritchie. She was like, "I think your cartoons are badass." And then Deputy Cook, the like lady police officer, she like, I was in the computer lab one day.
SRO, just as
I was on the computer lab one day, like drawing in Microsoft Paint, and then she came up behind me without me knowing. She was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh gosh." She's like, "It's okay. I love the cartoons." So anyway, yeah, I feel like it was like that moment of like my mom sticking up for me and like my ability to do things creatively and freely, despite them being taboo or whatever.
Right.
Having someone stand up for me and me realizing that it's kind of fun to get some people's panties in a wad, those types, and then have like other people have your back and be like,
you find community fast that way. You find community, and you find an audience, and you find like you that way when you're like realizing like, okay, if I'm creating, if I'm just putting myself out there, I'm putting my weirdest, most taboo thoughts, whatever it is, if I'm just putting out content and people are finding it, like that's encouraging.